Right, can I start off by introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name's Paul Dobson, better known as Sobs, because that's my school nickname.
Right.
And I'm one of the editorial team at Love Supreme.
Excellent. So, can I ask where you grew up, first of all?
I was born at Easington and spent a little while at Horton Spring, then Durham, and I moved to Bishop Auckland when I was 9.
Yeah, and what was it like growing up around that time?
It was, well, obviously I just started to get aware of football when the Charlie Hurley era was around.
Yeah.
He signed just after I was born, and then the first memories of the team doing anything were the 63-64 promotion season.
Yeah.
When I lived there at Belmont near Durham. And
did you have any like hobbies, or were you good at anything in particular when you were at school?
I used to play football very badly.
Yeah.
Play a bit of music. And that was about it.
How about writing? Were you good at English or?
Not till I was about 17.
Right.
I struggled with it, and then I had a really good teacher who sort of it just clicked. I did really badly in my mock A levels.
Yeah.
And then did really well in the actual ones because something just clicked. And went to university, did something entirely inappropriate in terms of subject matter. Did geography at Newcastle.
Right.
And apparently I had a way with words then. I never noticed. But I always used to.
What was it like going to university in Newcastle?
Well, I only went there because Durham wasn't ours, and I could get out of bed at 1 o'clock, so you'll have time for a pint at the Bluebell and get to the match at Roker.
Yeah, and what was your first memory of going to watch Sunderland?
To watch Sunderland played, because we lived in Bishop when I was little, it was difficult to get through unless my dad wanted to go, so the first games I saw Sunderland play were Charlie Hurley's 11 in charity games down at Kingsway at Bishop. Yeah. When you had the likes of Jim Baxter and George Hurd, Mulhall, Sessowen and them playing, and a few guests.
Mm-hmm. And what was Roker Park like at that time? Like what?
It was better than it was in the last few years. It was tatty and it was probably unsafe, but so was every other ground in the country. I went through with a bunch of mates after I've been a few times with my dad and enjoyed it. And you get to a certain age and you've got to paper around a bit of cash. You get together with a bunch of mates, get the bus through, and that was it. I'm still going with some of them now, 3 years later.
Uh-huh. And how did you come into contact with the Love Supreme? When did you start writing for them?
There used to be a fanzine years before called Wise Men Say, and the names carried on the letters page, etc. I wrote a couple of things for them, now Spectacular, and then I had to go and work abroad for a bit in Florida, and I really missed damp, miserable days in sun with a warm pint of Samson, so I faxed them something I wrote in my spare time while I was over there. They printed it, and then I started doing bits and bits more in a space. That was 20 years ago. So.
And where did the style come from? Because it's quite it's quite descriptive when you're writing. It's not the typical match report.
No, well, it's if you want a typical match report, there's newspapers and serious websites around. I've always been a bit of a how do you call it? Conversational style. It's been described as, so that's the word. You always go to the match with people, and there's things happened before which are of interest. You're on the bus, you're in the pub before, and you meet people.
Yeah.
Likewise afterwards. So it's not just about 3 o'clock till 4:45. It's about the build-up. It's about what you hear on the way down, what you think the team should be, what the tactics should be, and then you get to pull it all to bits afterwards.
Yeah, and like, has there ever been a point in time where we've just been so bad and losing every game where you think you just regurgitating the same stuff and you just thought, like, solid? Like, well,
you do think, but to be honest, it can get to the point when you're winning every game as well, but obviously you make an excuse for writing it then, but then, like you say, well, if you are going through and it's the same old, and you can see what's wrong, but if the manager can't put it right, you're not going to be able to do it, so you try your best to try and explain what the good bits are. I get accused sometimes of being a bit too happy-clappy, but it's easy to be miserable. It's a bit harder to write on the bright side. People don't want to read to be made miserable. If you're having a rotten season and you can read a match report about a match where you're terrible in, and you still think you enjoy reading it, if you don't, not so much the subject matter but the way it's written, then that's all for the good.
Has there ever been like a really bad time to write about in terms of the way we've been playing constantly?
Well, when you were at Everton and we got beat by so many, in Chelsea and you're getting beat by so many, and you think, I don't want to stay at the end of this, but you do, because if you don't, you might miss something nice happening. But people deserve to read about it, and there's a lot of people that would like to be at the away games or in the home game, and they cannot for whatever reason, if they're away with work or if they're living abroad, and they like to see what they would be doing, were they back in the country doing what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. And can you, like, for people who don't like football or don't support football, can you say how much does the football club mean to the local community?
I think even if people don't go to the match, people say, I'm a Sunderland fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some mates down Bishop who don't go, but Sunderland's still very much their team. And even though it's 20 odd miles away, it's still the County Durham team.
Mm-hmm.
Always has been, always will be. I mean, this tiny way of nonsense, but the fact for Sunderland City as it is now, it's one of the biggest things in the city. So it should be part of the community. It is, and it's nice to see Martin Bain saying he wants to get Sunderland back to being Sunderland, and not this whatever international thing that people in the Far East want to buy into. I'd like us to be popular abroad, but I want us to be popular at home first. I want all the little kids to be wearing Sunderland shirts, not Chelsea shirts and Man City shirts.
Yeah. And what does the club mean to you?
To me, it's I've been following it long enough. If you took it away now, I wouldn't know what to do. I'm lost enough in the summer as it is, which sounds a bit childish for somebody my age, but there's a lot of people like me. You do it, and you don't really think about why you do it or what you're doing. You just, all right, it's where you're going this way in Swansea, right? And then it might be, FA Cup game somewhere else on the Wednesday. But it's just the way things go.
And like, how far do you travel? Do you go to away games and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's where I went to the Checker Trade Trophy game last night at Wolves, and we'll go down to Swansea on Saturday. So.
And as supporting your love Sunderland ever like coming away with like your family or anything like that, or personal life, because like with regards to functions?
Probably, but I'm still married after 34 and a half years, and the kids still like us, and they still like Sunderland, and my youngest lad's started getting a few articles published now as well, so he's following on. But you have to strike a balance. Obviously, when the kids are little, you cannot either afford the money or the time to go to Swansea on a Wednesday night. You can't afford the time off work, so you have to be realistic and balance it out that way. But before you have a family, you spend all your spare money and your time going to the games, and when they've grown up and they've left home, you've got more time to yourself. So nowadays it's not such you don't have to work so hard on balancing things.
And was there like any did you ever look at anyone who also wrote about football or someone and like take inspiration from them when you write your column? Well,
I read the Nick Hornby book, which was all very well, but I couldn't understand the fact he'd only moved a few miles from London and he stopped watching Arsenal play. What's that about? It's only 30 odd miles from Cambridge, isn't it? Back to but that was a good football book. My favourite one is Harry Pearson's A Far Corner. I know he's a Middlesbrough fan, but he did that book, which was about a year or so just going to games at Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Hartlepool, Darlington, Bishop Auckland, South Shields concert, and writing about those and the little stories, and that really was quite an inspiration, because he's a tremendous writer, and he was writing stuff. It wasn't just about the football; it was the journey there, because he doesn't drive. So he'd have to work hard to get there, and then he'd find a nice pub to have a drink in, and then he'd have to watch a game in which he didn't support either side and listen to the crack from both sets of supporters, and then get home again.
And what's the worst match you've ever been to, do you think?
The worst game I've ever been to? Went to a game at Tranmere about 20-something years ago. We were winning. Bowley scored in the first half. It chucked down. We were in a building site at one end of the ground, and then they beat us 4-1. We were sopping wet and had to drive to Swansea with work afterwards in the car that just steamed up, and we've probably played worse than that, but that one sticks. A horrible experience and a bad game as well. That one sticks in the mind. And obviously losing any game at Newcastle.
And where did the ideas for? Because you've written like a number of books. When did they come about? Well,
the first one, I'd had the first line in my head for ages. Like, after we had 2 birthdays with the Queen, my first one's the 5th of September, the other one's was the 5th of September 14 years later, when I started coming to the match regular. And it was, Martin was thinking of publishing a book about then, and he said, would you fancy doing one, as long as it's not just like your bog standard diary of a season thing. So alright, I'll have a go for that. And that went alright. And then there was the Canterbury Tales run, lad I've been going to the match with since I was little, Derek, who sadly died before the book was published, but we just sat after the game once, and he said, you know, we should write all this down, like alphabetically, because everywhere you go, you've got a story. So we wrote them all down, and we had one or two little bits put in the fanzine, and then so we'll stick them all in a book, A to Z.
Yeah.
And that was that one.
What's the plan like going forward? Is it just to carry on with your blog, or have you got another book in the pipeline?
I haven't got another book in the pipeline at the minute. When we did the updated Sob Story 1, I did the Canterbury Tales we talked about, and we did the Great Escape, which I could do every year, but that gets a bit repetitive. It was alright once, but you don't want to flog a dead horse.